In 2003, in the isolated town of Silver Hollow, Oregon, something dark and disturbing happened. A crime that to this day remains one of the most haunting unsolved cases in American history. This wasn't just any crime. This was a story that left the people of Silver Hollow gripped by fear, turning their quiet community into a place haunted by whispers and shadows, and leaving generations after to wonder what truly happened. The story centers around the disappearance of Anna Dale, a college student and aspiring photographer who was known for her adventurous spirit and inquisitive mind. Anna was the kind of person who had a natural curiosity about life, someone who could make friends with just about anyone. In her spare time, she loved to explore the outdoors, capturing scenes of untamed nature in the dense forests surrounding her hometown. But one October afternoon, Anna went out on a photo expedition into the woods and never came back. She left behind her small apartment in town, her camera and her car still parked outside, dust beginning to settle on the windshield. Her friends, her family, even the locals, all took part in a desperate search that spanned miles of thick, nearly impassable forest. But there was no sign of her. Not even a single clue that would indicate where she had gone. Three days later, a cold and stormy evening descended upon Silver Hollow. The rain had been relentless, and it felt as if the entire town was drowning under a heavy blanket of water and fog. That's when a hiker found something unsettling in a clearing deep within the woods, a single Polaroid photograph lying in the mud. The photo was smudged and partially torn, but it was unmistakable. Anna was in the picture. She looked different from how everyone remembered her. Her clothes were ripped, her face was pale and streaked with dirt, and there was a look of absolute terror in her eyes. She was staring directly at the camera as if pleading for someone to find her. The authorities were baffled. They scoured the surrounding area, but there was nothing. No other photos, no footprints, no signs that anyone had even been there. The police classified Anna's case as a missing person investigation, but the townspeople knew there was something more sinister at play. Rumors began to spread about what might have happened to Anna. People whispered that she had been taken by a hermit who supposedly lived in the woods, a man who had once been a respected professor at a nearby university before he suffered a breakdown and retreated into the forest. Others claimed it was the work of something supernatural, that Anna had wandered too far into the woods and encountered a force beyond human comprehension. But then the notes began to appear. The first note was found taped to the door of Anna's childhood home, late on a cold November night. Her parents discovered it the next morning, and it sent shivers down their spines. "She's not far. Follow the whispers." It was scrawled in a shaky, almost childish hand, and the ink had smudged slightly, as if it had been written in haste. The handwriting didn't match Anna's, and there were no fingerprints or other clues to identify who had left it. The police dismissed it as a cruel prank, but Anna's mother couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was toying with them. Days passed, and then another note appeared, this time at the entrance of Silver Hollow High School, where Anna had once been a student. It read, "She's waiting in the dark. Listen closely, and you'll hear her." Once again, the message was vague, unsettling. It was as if someone was leading them into a game, a sinister scavenger hunt designed to lure them deeper and deeper into the woods. The night in the forest. Anna's parents were distraught, but desperation drove them to follow these cryptic clues. They couldn't rest until they knew what had happened to their daughter. So, on a frigid night in December, Anna's father, Tom, gathered a group of friends and neighbours to venture into the forest with him. He carried only a flashlight, a map of the woods, and the determination to bring his daughter back home no matter what. They began their trek at dusk, the forest dense and silent around them, as if every creature was hiding from something lurking within. As they moved deeper into the woods, a strange sensation began to wash over them. They heard whispers, soft, almost indiscernible voices that seemed to drift through the trees like a chilling breeze. The voices were faint, like the rustle of leaves, but every now and then a phrase would rise above the rest, cutting through the silence. "Come find me. She's waiting. Keep going." Tom stopped in his tracks, gripping the flashlight so tightly his knuckles turned white. He could have sworn one of those voices was Anna's. The others heard it too, their faces pale, but none of them dared to speak, afraid that whatever was in the woods would hear them. As they continued their journey, they came across a small clearing, and there, hanging from the branches of a tree, was another photograph. It was another Polaroid of Anna, this one showing her standing in what looked like a dark, cramped room, her hands pressed against a dirt-covered wall. Her face was twisted in fear, and her eyes seemed to be pleading for help. Tom's heart raced as he reached up and grabbed the photo. He could barely process what he was seeing. How was it possible that Anna was still alive, still out here, lost in these woods? But as he stared at the photograph, something else caught his attention. In the background behind Anna, he could make out the faint outline of a figure, a shadowy figure, barely visible, but unmistakably there, lurking just beyond her shoulder. Following the clues, they finally came across an old, decrepit cabin buried deep in the forest. The cabin was partially hidden by overgrown branches and vines, and it looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. As they approached, Tom noticed something carved into the door, an odd symbol that looked like a cross between a tree and an eye. The sight of it sent a chill down his spine. They forced the door open, the rusted hinges creaking loudly. Inside, the cabin was dark, cold, and empty. Or so they thought. As Tom's flashlight scanned the room, they found a wall covered in photographs of Anna. Each one was different, showing her in various states of fear and desperation. In some, she was alone. In others, the shadowy figure was closer, always watching her, always lurking just out of reach. And then Tom saw it, a final photograph pinned to the wall. It was a Polaroid of him standing in the very cabin where they now stood, taken just moments before they arrived. There was no mistaking it. He was wearing the same jacket, holding the same flashlight, looking just as terrified as he felt in that moment. They left the cabin that night, shaken and horrified. But the nightmare didn't end there. Over the next few days, more photographs appeared around town, Polaroids of the search party members, each one depicting them in vulnerable, terrified poses as they ventured deeper into the woods. It was as if someone or something was watching their every move, documenting their fear for reasons they couldn't begin to understand. Months passed and the trail grew cold. Anna's parents were left without closure, forced to live with the knowledge that they might never know what truly happened to their daughter. The town of Silver Hollow went back to its quiet, unassuming existence. But the people who had been in those woods that night were never the same. Some of them moved away, too haunted by the memories to stay. One year later. Then, almost exactly 1 year after Anna's disappearance, the police made a chilling discovery. Deep in the forest, buried beneath a pile of rocks and dirt, they found a small crude grave. Inside was a body decomposed beyond recognition, but they knew immediately who it was. The tattered clothing, the broken camera nearby, and a Polaroid clutched in the skeletal hand confirmed what they already knew. The body was Anna's, but that wasn't the most disturbing part. The Polaroid she held was of the search party from that night, taken from somewhere high in the trees looking down on them. It was as if whoever or whatever had taken her was still out there, watching, waiting and leaving behind a warning for those who dared to follow. The people of Silver Hollow whispered of a curse that lingered in the woods, a malevolent spirit that lured people into the darkness and fed off their fear. The whispers say that Anna's soul is trapped there, still wandering, still searching for someone to bring her home. And to this day, on certain cold October nights, if you stand at the edge of the woods and listen closely, you can still hear her voice whispering through the trees, "Help me, don't leave me here." No one goes into those woods anymore.